Today, I'm going to be eating Final Fantasy VII Remake food all day. Here's today's menu. Tifa's Eggs and Chips from 7th Heaven, the Midgar Pizza Special from Jesse's mom, who's got it going on. Oh my, does that work? And whatever this is for dessert. These recipes are super easy and you can make them throughout the entire day, but I will say you do want to set aside some time when making a few of them. Now, this isn't actually shown in the video game, but it is a sign on the wall in 7th Heaven. This is also a dish that you can find in the UK, which is maybe a substitute for fish and chips, something that maybe you would have for breakfast. And that's gonna be today's breakfast, but with just a little bit of a twist. On my second channel, I recently visited a restaurant called Lardo here in Portland, and they have these wonderful fries called Lardo fries. They're French fries that are dressed in fried herbs and Parmesan cheese. And so I figure, why not combine the best of that with this? This is a very simple breakfast to make, and you can make this either the day of, like I'm doing today, or prep the potatoes out ahead of time to have them for the following day. All you need is one russet potato or maybe a Yukon Gold, a splash of olive oil all over the cutting board. Give this a quick toss just so those potatoes are nice and coated. Give this a nice heavy sprinkle of salt, and these go in the oven for around 20 to 25 minutes or until they're nice and tender. Now, you could deep fry these like they would traditionally be done, but I like doing them this way because they're a little healthier and you can make a ton of them at once and throw them in the freezer and just pull them out whenever you want them. These are going in the oven at 375 for about 20 minutes. Now, while the potatoes are in there, here's what I have to make next. I have a little bit of an herb blend that's gonna be slightly different than Lardo's, but I'm gonna try to keep it as consistent as possible, and this is some fresh sage. If you don't have fresh sage, you can use dry. Same with some fresh thyme. I'm using fresh thyme here that I was able to pick up locally, but if you can't find fresh thyme, you can use dry herbs as well. All you wanna do is take the thyme off the stems as best as you can. Sometimes, you know, stems end up in there, and that's fine. Once you've gotten most of the thyme leaves off of the stems, this is where you can kind of just combine the thyme and the sage together and give this a nice chop, making sure it's really well minced. This way we can toss it with the French fries later, and it's gonna be so good. Once your herbs are nice and chopped, this is what they should look like. You see that? Nice and chopped? I'm gonna be adding these herbs to around 2 to 3 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. Yes, Parmesan cheese is going on these French fries. Not super traditional to eggs and chips, but it's still gonna be amazing. I'm gonna give this a nice toss, get this all incorporated, and this is ready to go. Now, after around 20 minutes, our fries are done. And look at these, they have a nice color to them. They're, you know, they have a little bit of color on the top, but not necessarily on the bottom. And that's okay because we're going to be searing these off in a cast iron pan. This, my friends, is going to be an amazing breakfast. I'm heating my cast iron to like a medium-high heat. I want this pretty hot to sear off these eggs and the potatoes. A little bit of olive oil in the pan to get it nice and warm. Now, once this oil moves pretty freely in the pan, you know it's gonna be nice and hot. This is where we can take our potatoes and place them into the pan. Remember, this is only one potato, so you can just have the whole thing. That's what I'm gonna have anyways. Yes, yes. I'm going to kind of form a barrier for the eggs. Try not to burn yourself. Now, these are gonna sear on one side for just a minute or two, and then we're gonna flip them, and then the eggs go in, and the cheese. Can't forget this stuff. Oh, this is probably gonna be so good. I can confirm, that's good. All right, I'm gonna give these a flip. This is where we can kind of finish up this dish. This doesn't take too long to finish, which is great. And like I had said earlier, the longest part was baking the potatoes, which took about 20 minutes. So if you have this ready to go, you absolutely can make this each morning if you wanted to. You can keep the cheese and the herbs in the fridge, no problem at all. And then just to make sure that the eggs don't really stick to the center, I'm gonna spray just a little bit of pan spray into the center of this. And then we're gonna take 2 whole eggs. You can do as many eggs as you want. I don't care, but I'm doing 2 right into the center. Oh my God. Oh, come on. Now, before we smoke the house out, I'm gonna take a bunch of our cheese and put it right on top of the potato, some on the egg. Oh, it's gonna be in the pan, get nice and crispy. Look at, oh my God, guys, look at this. It's ridiculous. A little sprinkle of salt right onto the eggs. I'm just gonna give the eggs like a little, you know, a little potato hug here. Now, really important, we're gonna take a lid and just a touch of water, add in some water to this, and throw a lid on it, and that's gonna help steam the eggs a little bit. You don't wanna cook them too long, but if you like your eggs cooked all the way through, cook them all the way through. I don't care. Have them with hard-boiled eggs. Scotch eggs, whatever you want. What I love about this recipe is that you get to serve it in the pan. So if you have a smaller cast iron, you can use that instead and just serve it at the table. You know, just have some fun with it. Oh, yes. Hold up. That was it. That was maybe a minute and a half, maybe, if that. I wish you could smell the smells that I'm smelling. I'm gonna turn the heat off and just place it right onto not right onto the cutting board. It's actually not a good idea because this will absolutely destroy your cutting board. So I'm gonna take a little, one of these towel things and then place that on my cutting board. My eggs are still pretty wet. I like my eggs that way. Some people do not like their eggs that way, and that's totally okay. But look at this. That looks amazing. You can smell the Parmesan. It got a little crispy and a little burned on the edges, I admit, but on top of the potatoes, it looks amazing. Can you hear this? It's hot. Now the first thing I wanna do is cut into this potato, because dude, I love French fries so much. It's so hot. Look at the underside of that potato now. Look at it, guys, all that color. My mouth is literally watering right now. Cheers. Oh, it's so hot, but it's so good. Oh my God. The potatoes, they're soft and pillowy. You can see the inside of them looks like almost like mashed potatoes. But the kicker is that the underside now has this beautiful crispiness from how we charred them in the pan. But here, my friends, is what we call the pro move. Take a potato and you dunk it in the egg yolk. Look at this bite. Do you not want that for breakfast? Is this not what breakfast is? Potatoes and eggs all over your hand? Cheers. I've transcended to seventh heaven. I would absolutely order this at a restaurant, especially if Tifa was making it. Admittedly, if Tifa were serving me dirt in the pan, I would still eat it. But now, my friends, I'm gonna eat this, and I'll see you for lunch when I have to make the Midgar special, because pizza does take a bit of time. Do the victory music. I have to admit, I'm still kind of full from breakfast because the potatoes were super filling as well as the proteins and the fats from the eggs, but we have to start pizza pretty early. The reason for that is because this dough actually takes around 4 hours to ferment. So if you're making this, maybe make it on a Sunday or a day where you have some time off, so this way you can let it rest and let it ferment. Or instead of using my recipe, feel free to use an overnight dough ferment, which actually works really well for this pizza too. The Midgar special is actually inspired by my friend Vicky over at Pixelated Vicky. I'm going to leave her recipe in the link down below, but I did make some modifications so I can make this the same day. I'm using a food processor and I'm adding in 360 grams of flour, 360 grams of bread flour in particular, 7 grams of salt. Make sure you're using like a kosher salt, not a table salt. It might be too salty. And around 6 grams of olive oil. You wanna make sure that you have a decent amount of olive oil in there so this way it gives it a nice shine to it later. Now the last thing we have to do before we mix this is take 250 milliliters of liquid. This is 125 milliliters of milk and 125 milliliters of water. I'm adding in 5 grams of yeast. I'm just gonna give this a stir and we're gonna let this sit for around 5 or 6 minutes, just so this way the yeast gets saturated with all of that liquid. I'm gonna put this out of the way and we're going to make our sauce while that ferment happens, just because we don't have a lot of time and I really wanna have this for dinner, and it's just taking more time than I thought it was gonna take. Now the sauce is actually really easy. I have 1 can or 28 ounces of San Marzano tomatoes. These are the whole tomatoes that have been peeled, and these are ready to go for pizza sauce. Into the tomatoes, I'm adding in 4 cloves of chopped garlic. I like my garlic nice and chunky, but feel free to just mince them up if you really want to. Next is 1 tablespoon of black pepper. This is just fresh ground black pepper right into here. You can go lighter on it if you don't like too much black pepper. Next is 1 tablespoon of salt. Make sure you do season your pizza sauce. And then just for some dried herbs, I have some dried basil and some dried oregano. There's about 2 teaspoons of each. Throwing that right into the sauce. And lastly, because I like my pizza sauce a little spicy, I'm adding in around 1/2 a tablespoon of chili flake. Again, feel free to leave this part out if you don't want yours spicy. Now to break up the tomatoes, you can do a couple of things. You can grab yourself a potato masher like this and just mash these together, or you can do them by hand. Honestly, just do whatever you want. Maybe not put it into a blender because you can bruise the tomatoes pretty easily. And I really like to have a chunky tomato sauce, so I actually like using this or a glove just to mash it up a little bit. Now at this stage, I would actually give it a taste and see if you want to add anything else. That's perfect. That was good. That's exactly how I like it. Nice kick. Ooh, extra kick. The garlic is really nice because it's chunky, but remember, this is gonna cook down It'll get a little sweeter in the oven because tomatoes naturally will get sweet when cooked. But our tomato sauce is ready to go. And because I don't have a ton of room in my refrigerator, instead of putting this giant bowl in there, I'm actually gonna put this into a smaller container. This way it'll fit nicely into my fridge. Now with our sauce done, we can actually finish this dough. This is the easy part. We're going to drop in all of our liquid with the yeast right on top of our flour. Throw your lid on it. And then my blender actually has a dough function, so I'm just gonna hit that for about 60 to 90 seconds. It's dough already. That's how fast this dough is made in this food processor. It should come together really well. It's a little sticky, which is nice. And this is what my dough looks like right out of the food processor. So you can see it's kind of rough, that's okay, because we're going to throw this on the cutting board. I probably should have put some flour down, but I think it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna work this for about 60 seconds, just getting a little more gluten in it and forming a nice round ball. And then I'm going to let this rest for 2 hours. Yes, 2 hours for the first rest. This is what my dough now looks like after that minute or two of kneading by hand. It's still a little rough, not entirely smooth, but that's okay. This is what we want it to look like. That's a nice ball of dough, yes? Now grab yourself whatever bowl you want. I just cleaned out the bowl. I just had the tomato sauce in. I'm going to lightly grease it with just a touch of olive oil, not too much. Get this nice and greased up so this way the dough doesn't stick to the bowl. Take this guy, place it in here. Grab yourself a lid that fits. I'm gonna place this right on here, and this is, I'm gonna probably put something on top. This has to rest for 2 hours or doubled in size. But while the dough is relaxing for that first ferment, I'm actually gonna start dessert. Remember at the beginning of the video where I kind of blurred out this image? Well, if you're smart, like most of you are, you probably noticed that in the thumbnail, there's this giant purple object. And yes, I'm making edible materia. This is actually a take on a traditional Japanese raindrop cake, and it's super easy to put together. In a small pot, I am adding in about 1 cup of water. I say about, but it's pretty close to just exactly 1 cup of water. 2 tablespoons of sugar. This is just to sweeten it up lightly, because normally a raindrop cake is just sweetened with sugar, and I believe sometimes honey. I'm gonna stir this up just until the sugar is nice and dissolved. Once the sugar is dissolved, I'm going to be adding in agar powder. This is what's going to thicken this up to take its shape and become materia. This is just 1/2 a teaspoon of agar powder. It can be very strong, and a lot of bottles that you buy of agar powder actually recommend that you use 1/2 a teaspoon per 1/2 cup. So I've actually reduced the amount of agar by half because I found the texture to be a little closer to a traditional jello. And I actually have quite a few mistakes sitting in the fridge from experimenting with this, and you're gonna get to see those later. Now, agar does get heat activated. What that means is I have to bring this to a boil and boil it for about 4 to 5 minutes for the agar to activate and start thickening. But Paul, it looks nothing like purple materia. That's where ube flavoring comes in. I found this at my local Asian grocery store, and I figured, why not put some ube in it? It's delicious. Everybody loves ube. Now, after 5 minutes of simmering, this is almost ready. Like I mentioned earlier, I still have to add the flavoring. You can add almost anything, which I will show you later, but those were mistakes and they kind of didn't work out. Almost anything, but the ube itself is very dark. You can see it's almost black. So I'm adding in just a touch because this can go a long way, and I'm using a skewer to literally measure how much I need of this. I'm gonna turn off the heat so I can bring this up to you guys. This is all I'm adding. Look at the liquid. Can you see that? Just from that small amount, it is beautifully purple. Let's see what this tastes like. Oh, I think it could use a little more, but I don't wanna mess it up. I'm gonna do just the smallest amount more. Let's see what this looks like. I hope this looks as gorgeous as I want it to look. Oh, that purple is gorgeous. Look at that. Purple materia, there we go. But it's still not quite materia, and that's where these spherical ice molds come in. Normally, you would use these for cocktails and for really fancy drinks, but instead, we're using them for materia because we're gamers, right? I'm gonna pour this into a measuring cup so I can easily pour this into that sphere mold. Okay, now I can show you the color. Look at that, that's gorgeous. Carefully, make sure this is on, okay? Carefully pour this into your mold so you don't lose any of it. 1 cup of liquid on average has given me about 1 to 1.5 molds. Come on. Oh, there it is. There's just a little tiny bit left. What I want to do is tap this just a few times, and be careful because there's boiling water now splashing onto my fingers. Hopefully this dessert comes out. We won't know until we have our pizza. And now we do the folds on the pizza.
I couldn't be bothered to come back downstairs to do the folds on the pizza, so I had my sous chef come over to do it for me. This is what our dough should look like after the first 2 hours. Really plump and beautiful, and this is where we get a lot of the air out of it and gently, I said gently, stop it. We gently fold the dough. You want to fold this over a couple of times to help work out some of the gluten, but our sous chef here is just beating the hell out of it, and that's okay too, because you can form some gluten. Why are you looking over that way? You can do a couple of slap and folds and then roll the dough back out onto the cutting board, making sure it gets rolled back into a ball. Place it back into our bowl very gently, we're gonna proof it again for 2 hours and just make sure it rises again. Thanks very much for your help.
Now, hopefully my lackey didn't mess up the dough, because it's finally time to put this pizza in the oven. This has been resting for another 2 hours. This is what our dough looks like. It should be nice and plump again, and this is ready to work with. Now, this is also totally up to you. You can absolutely use semolina flour on the bottom if you want, but I'm just using regular flour because the semolina flour that I have is way too big. So I'm just putting a little bit of flour on the bottom of my cutting board, and look at this beautiful dough. Oh, it smells so good. This guy onto your cutting board, press it down and start getting all that air out and start forming a crust. I like to kind of stretch my dough just a little bit and get that worked. I'm also really bad at making pizza, so I'm gonna try my best. I can only do big doughboy balls, and that's it. You can make this a thicker crust if you want. You can do stuffed crust if you want, but we're gonna keep it to the Midgar special. I like to just try to make sure that my crust is fairly even all the way around, and I'm gonna try to do the thing. Ready? Oh, we did it. That was pretty good. One more. That's all I can do. That's it. This crust is a little thin in the middle, admittedly, so we're gonna have a kind of this thicker crust on the outside because I didn't roll it very well, but that's okay. Now, to make my life easy, I am using a pizza peel to get this onto the pizza stone that I have preheating in the oven. My oven's set at 425 degrees Fahrenheit, so it is pretty ripping hot. A little bit of olive oil right onto the outside of the dough, primarily with a little bit in the center. This olive oil is gonna actually help protect the dough so it doesn't burn very easily in the oven, and it gets a really nice color. This is gonna get covered up with all the toppings. And speaking of toppings, the Midgar special gets many toppings. Buster Sword, you're always just too big. First things first is the sauce. We're gonna take some of our pizza sauce that we made earlier, put this right into the center and kind of all around. You don't want to sauce too, I mean, you can sauce too much if you want. I'm also trying to get some of the chunks of the tomato in here too, just like I had mentioned when I was making the sauce. I like my sauce super chunky. Once you have it sauced up, this is when we start adding our cheeses. And yes, cheeses. I'm starting off with shredded mozzarella. You want to get a good coating of this because this is going to be the base of the pizza. I'm using around 6 ounces of shredded mozzarella. The next cheese is some shredded cheddar. This is just the same Tillamook cheddar that's going right on top. I'm using about 5 ounces of this as well. So this is gonna be a very, very cheesy pizza. Oh, this is gonna be ridiculous. And last but not least, I'm using some Gruyere cheese. Now, Vicky's recipe does ask for Fontina cheese, but I couldn't find that. So Gruyere is a good substitute. And it seems like it's readily available almost at any grocer, so I'm gonna put it on a sprinkle of this. I think I have about 3 ounces of Gruyere, and this thing is going to be absolutely loaded to the gills with cheese. There's so much cheese, I'm not gonna survive the night. And then finally, I have some boar's head pepperoni. This is just my local grocery store. You can use whatever meat you want. If you can't have pork, feel free to not have pork. You can have this with just the cheese, or you can have this with maybe some chicken if you want. Honestly, put whatever you want on your pizza. I'm gonna load mine up with a good amount of pepperoni. Now this is going to go into the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for around 12 minutes, 14 minutes, just keep an eye on it, all right? Hopefully I can get this off. We'll find out. Oh yes, yes. Some of the pepperoni kind of, moved around a little bit, that's okay. And now my friends, we wait. Ready? Okay, God, please don't drop this. That is a thick, boy, look at this. Oh my God, it looks so good. Admittedly, my crust is very thick, which is okay. I like a thicker crust, that's okay. You could probably split this pizza into 2 smaller ones, maybe 2 12-inch pizzas, and you'd be okay. I am going to let it rest in my pizza pan here for like a minute or 2 before I cut it, because this thing needs the rest. It's smoking hot and you don't want to cut it right away. Now after this pizza has rested, we can just put this straight onto the cutting board so we can cut it. Oh, the dough feels really nice though. Like I'm pretty happy with this, especially putting this into a conventional oven versus one of those fancy pizza ovens that most YouTubers have, and I don't have because I can't buy one. But I almost forgot. There's one more thing I have to put on it. A little sprinkle of Parmesan cheese to help absorb all of the fats on the pepperoni. You can definitely leave this out, but I find this to be a power move because it absorbs all that flavor. Oh, it's so good like this. Now we can cut it.
I'm gonna be cutting my pizza into 8 equal slices, but honestly, you can cut this to be as big or as small as you want. Fold it into a taco. I really don't care how you eat this. Just make sure that before you cut it, you do let it cool down so this way it cuts nice and evenly.
You guys ready for this one? Look at, oh God, it's so hot. I can't even pick it up. There's so much cheese and toppings on here. I legitimately can't pick this up. Oh my God, please, come off. Yes, look at that. That looks so freaking good. Oh my God. You have the cheddar down there. You have all the other cheese down there. The crust itself is still nice and airy, which is great. You can see it has a little bit of air pockets going on in there, which is what I really like. I think I'm gonna just, burn the hell out of my mouth right now. This is probably gonna be a mistake, but cheers. Come on, that is so good. It's slightly spicy, oh, super cheesy. You have the chunks of tomato from the sauce. It's lightly salted, which is really nice. Oh, you just get, it's just really good pizza, When you have a really good piece of pizza, it's hard to describe it other than this is good pizza. Oh, really hot. Look at the bottom of the crust too. You can see that nice color on there too? That looks really good. Admittedly, I still would have liked some semolina flour on there, but this is a great substitute. We still have to get dessert. You didn't think I forgot about dessert, did you? And now, my friends, the moment of truth. But before I reveal what's in here, I want to show you all of my mistakes. These are all of my mistakes, and that's okay. I was trying to figure out how to make this work. In this pile, I have the lime juice and the lemon juice. Now, what we think happened is I didn't add enough agar to this to solidify it like you would be able to with other flavors, or it deteriorated because of the acidity in the lime and the lemon. So I'm gonna give this a taste test. Tastes like lemon jello, delicious. Now for the lime one. Tastes like lime, not jello. Oh, it's sour. Now these next two are actually the same ube coloring and flavoring, but I added way too much. And you can see, this just looks like the Death Star. Wait, is the Death Star black? I don't think the Death Star is black. This looks like a black hole. It's really pretty, but that little bit of ube, if you put in too much, it ends up being way too dark. That's where these two were messed up. And now my hand is stained purple for the next 5 to 6 hours. And then I actually tried a beautiful blue materia, because yes, there's blue materia in the game as well. And this one came out really nicely. This is where I was starting to really dial in the amount of agar you needed to the amount of flavoring. And this one is actually cotton candy flavoring. Admittedly, it smells like cotton candy. Now, if everything went according to plan, this should unmold perfectly, hopefully. Ready? If it doesn't, we're just gonna eat one of the other ones. It's okay. Oh, come on. Let's go. Please don't break in half. Please don't break in half. Yes, look at the purple on that. Oh, that's beautiful. Look at it. That's the color that I wanted. Look at the difference in these two, and these are the same ube flavors. This is the one we did today. This is the one I did earlier. It's a night and day difference. But you're probably asking, Paul, are you just gonna eat it like this? And the answer is no. Grab yourself a plate. We're gonna plate up this dessert. And here's a very fun way I thought of. Sweetened condensed milk out of a bottle. What, you think you're gonna make this? Why would you just buy it from the store? A little dollop right onto the bottom. Then I have some unsweetened shredded coconut. I'm gonna put that right on top. What I'm doing is I'm building a base for this to sit on because that's very slippery. Now, we have to demold this. Oh, it just came right out. I made it way more dramatic than it needed to be. That just came right out. Look at this. That's gorgeous. If this actually had a socket, I think it, fit right there. Take this guy right on top. It's so simple, but it's so cool looking. Now the next thing is to get a piece of paper towel. We're going to dry it off just a little, just a touch. This way I can take a little more sauce We're gonna layer this. Look at this. Oh, that's so nice. Why am I whispering to it? A little bit more coconut right on top. Maybe a little sauce on the plate. Why not? And there, my friends, is a very interesting dessert. I promise you, if you make these, they will be a showstopper. These are so easy to make. And look at how awesome that looks. But before I eat this, I have to tell you about today's sponsor, Quest for the Best Tokyo. Yes, my own book is sponsoring the channel, which is fantastic. This is live over on Kickstarter, and you only have a few more days to reserve your signed copy. Anyone that picks up a copy over on Kickstarter will be signed by me. Yes, by me. I sign every single one. And you're going to get the exclusive creator cover that is only available on Kickstarter. In this book, you're going to find all of my adventures that I had taken throughout Japan and companion guides for all of my favorite recipes I came across. Things like the convenience store fried chicken. I tasted every single one I could find and I made you guys a recipe for it. There's also a few exclusive bundles where you can pick up the really cool D20s that we had used in each of the videos, and the executive chef bundles where you get full tours and maps of everywhere we visited throughout Tokyo. You're also going to get an exclusive box and headband in that package. So if you want to support what we do here on the channel, the best way to do that is by picking up our brand new books. The link is down in the description, and I would love to see you guys over there supporting this Kickstarter. Now, my friends, it's finally time to eat Materia. I wonder if they could eat Materia in Final Fantasy. Oh, it just like split in two. Look at that. That's perfect. Take a chunk of our jelly, mix it in with this coconut and the condensed milk. This, my friends, is a relatively healthy dessert. Cheers. That is so good. I'm not just saying that because it looks cool. The ube comes through from the flavoring. It's not overly sweet, which is nice. You get a little bit of that creamy, beautiful texture and flavor from that condensed milk, which does sweeten it up a little bit, which it does need. And then you have the coconut, which adds another layer of texture on top of it. This is really good. I didn't think I would enjoy this as much as I'm enjoying it. Just like you're going to enjoy Quest for the Best Tokyo more than you think you're going to enjoy it. My name is CHEFPK, and remember, keep playing with your food.